And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is 9 o'clock here on this Wednesday, August 27th. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzky, and welcome to Ask Andrew Live. It is so good to be back with you after a little bit of vacation time. We're back into the swing of things here and some new digs. Yeah, we're in our temporary studio, or other studio, I should say, as work continues on our main set. We're excited to show that off to you in just a couple of weeks' time. We're getting closer and closer. It is gorgeous. And again, can't wait to get back over there. You're going to notice some new things, some familiar things. Bottom line, it looks really, really cool. Again, a couple of weeks, we'll be right back into our new home next door. But for now, great space, and I love that we can utilize this big, beautiful monitor array behind us to talk about everything weather related. So if you're new, welcome. It's good to have you in with us here this morning, and we hope to see you every Wednesday morning right here on the 8 Plus app. The number to text your questions, as always, right here at the bottom of your screen. It's 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888. Right on your cell phone. That's how you're going to send your weather-related questions in to me, and then our awesome team, our digital team, including Alec, will get those to me here on the set. Also, big thank you to our director this morning, Aiden, who I unfortunately forgot to mention last time he was working with us. So Aiden's our director this morning, and we've got Alec working the digital side to get your questions to me right here on the set. So lots to talk about today, including a big temperature roller coaster ride that's going to be on the way. And also, we'll go over the couple of questions that I answered on the air during GMQC. And then we'll have plenty of time, like we always do at the end, to answer your questions. So I hope this finds you doing very well and you're having a good week so far. The weather, as of late, has been absolutely phenomenal. It's been an October preview. We're calling it fake fall. That's what we've been seeing right now. The big weather story today is we're going to be tracking in some showers, and I'm going to pull those up here on our interactive radar. Nothing heavy. These are very, very light showers in nature, and we're not going to be seeing a ton of rain out of these, but we are eventually going to start to get wet here. And I'll pull this up so you can see as it loads behind me. It's not a lot of coverage, very scattered in nature. You can see those moving throughout parts of eastern Iowa, especially in the northern half of the state. A lot of this activity here to the south is not reaching the ground, but I can guarantee some of this activity right here near Des Moines, kind of into Waterloo, that's the activity that is likely reaching the ground, and it's going to continue to work its way here to the southeast as we go through the morning. So a little bit of light rain coming our way, but nothing too heavy. It's just enough like what I did over the weekend, gave the car a nice wash. Well, it's just enough to kind of mess that up, kind of put the leopard dots on there, if you will, as that rain comes through. That and another shower chance tomorrow is all we have in terms of the rainfall opportunity. Now, FutureTrack has been doing a fantastic job handling the timing and also the coverage of this rain too as it moves through. In fact, you notice here as we put FutureTrack into motion, well, actually it wants to go to the 14-day. Let's try that again. We'll put FutureTrack back into motion here, and I'll show you how this is going to progress through the region. So there's our showers. They'll continue up until about 3-4 o'clock or so. So kids walking home from school, especially on the Illinois side, might get a little wet. Hopefully they have the umbrella, as I've been advising the last couple of days. The rest of this evening is quiet. Really don't see too much happening here, and even overnight it looks like any new activity is going to take off to our north and to our east. But as we go into tomorrow for Thursday, we're going to start off dry with a mostly sunny sky, and then as we get into the afternoon, there you see a couple more of those showers. What you're seeing is a cold front coming right in from the north, so that's going to have enough lift, enough energy and moisture with it to give us some of those scattered showers tomorrow afternoon. We're not expecting any severe weather, but we are going to have a pretty big roller coaster ride of temperatures to contend with in the next several days. And I showed you that here with our 14-day, and I'll go right back to it because it really shows it best. The 8-day, yeah, you can see a little bit of a dip, but if you pull this out to the full 2 weeks, you can really see how we're going to start that roller coaster ride, starting with the 80s tomorrow, and then another little dip here into the weekend. Then we get to Labor Day, we're going right back up, followed by our next cold front, which will be arriving after Labor Day, next Tuesday into Wednesday. That will once again cool off temperatures for the following weekend. It gets us right back into low 70s before we start that gentle climb right back up into the 80s by the tail end of the 2 week period. So this is not that unusual. We're getting into September. We're starting meteorological fall, by the way, September 1st. So this is to be expected. That wild roller coaster ride is going to continue. Speaking of rides, I'm going to collapse a few things on my screen here really quick. Let me talk about the temperature pattern that we've had this year so far. That was the focus of our question this morning. We had Dave asking us here from Clinton, have we seen more hot days this year? And I know hot is kind of a relative term. Some of us have different definitions of hot. For me, I think hot is anything 90 plus, but there's some of you maybe 80 plus or 85 plus you may consider to be hot. We've definitely had our fair share of all of those, but what I want to show you is this data broken down. And I'm actually going to have Aiden, our director, take this full screen graphic to read when it's in the monitor behind me because we're dealing with some smaller fonts. So take this in for just a moment and I'll explain exactly what you're seeing here on the screen. So the line that is in red, and I'm going to point it out to you here, this line right here, it's a nice, smooth, flowing line. This is the normal high temperature for every single day since the beginning of the year. And we would expect that to be a nice, smooth, flowing line. What you're seeing in blue here, all of these little jagged edges, these lines here, these mountains and these valleys, these are your actual high temperatures that we have seen so far this year for every single day up through yesterday. And look at the big jumps we get. No surprise, we would never expect our daily high temperatures to follow this smooth line. That's the average, that's the normal, it's going to be smooth. But I want to point out a couple of things, and this will kind of help set the relativity of how hot it's been into motion here for you. So at the beginning of the year, we actually had quite a cool start to the year. You can see there's a lot of big dips here where the high temperatures, especially going into late January and again in early March, were significantly cooler than where we should have been normally. However, once we got into the spring months, a little bit further into spring, notice we spent more time above the average. We had warmer days. We got into early June, we spiked up again, but then mid-June we had another big dip. It got a little bit cooler. Then we got back closer to normal, followed by a couple more spikes here heading into July, and now a couple more spikes into August. But recently we've had these big dips here, and we're in the midst of another big dip here too with all these cool days. So what does that mean? If you take all of those temperatures that we have observed so far and compare them to what the normal reading would be, we're only about 0.2 of a degree warmer than normal in terms of the temperatures so far this year, and our summertime temperature is only about 0.4 of a degree warmer. So with that being said, we've had a fairly average summer. The only thing that hasn't been average is the humidity, and we've talked about that, how July, we had the second most humid July on record in the Quad Cities. I think it's the humidity that's got all of us thinking it's been so hot this summer, not so much the temperature. Here's the raw math. You see 110 degrees, or 110 days, is how many days we've spent above normal temperature-wise. 112 days, though, have actually been cooler than normal. So slightly more cooler days than warmer days. And if you're doing the math, you're probably thinking, well, those two numbers don't add up to how many days we've had already this year. There's 15 days that I'm not showing you that have featured neither warmer nor cooler conditions so far this year. So it's been a really interesting even split, and it has been a normal year, if you will, in terms of the temperatures, but I think, again, not so normal in terms of the humidity. You can also verify that, too. If you look at the number of 90s or 90-plus degree days we've had so far this year, look at May, that was average. June definitely was warmer. July, we fell short of the average, and we're also falling short during the month of August. I guarantee you we're not going to see a 90-degree day before the close of the month, which is happening in just a matter of days. September, we usually see about 2 90-plus degree days on average, so I don't think we're going to be making those up anytime soon, but look at the total at the top, 20 out of 23. That's a pretty average year in terms of the heat that we've had here in the Quad Cities. So that was a fantastic question. Really enjoyed digging into the data. I consider myself a data nerd, and if I can get my hands on that data and put it in a nice graph for you, I'll always do that to kind of break it down and let you see how things are panning out. The other question I had this week involves the upcoming winter. A lot of you have been wondering, does all this rain that we've had this summer, this really wet, active summer, mean we're going to get some really nice snows for the upcoming winter? So again, I went back into the data, kind of dug through some of that, and I'm going to throw this up here on the screen. And I think we can start with the wide picture here first, and then we'll eventually get into the nitty-gritty. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the top 10 wettest summers. They're all listed on your screen right here. Now, our summer currently is nowhere near the top 10. This is the 52nd wettest summer on record for us here in the Quad Cities. So not a huge deal, not extremely wet, but it's definitely been wetter than normal. Look at some of the more recent wettest summers, though, including the ones that made the top 10. 2010, 2009, 2007. We've got at least 3 years there that are really tightly grouped together. So we've got a lot of good data to work with here. So let me pull up the end result here. What happened with those wet summers the following winters? Did we get more snow, or did we get a little bit less snow? Well, the consensus is most of those following winters featured much more snowfall. In fact, take a look at 2007, almost 2 feet worth of snowfall, more than 2 feet almost in some spots. We almost had 2 feet also in 2010. 1993, we had about a foot more worth of snow and more than a foot in 2009. Now, yes, there have been some years where we didn't get all of the snow, but more often than not, we did end up with a snowy winter that followed a really wet summer. What's going to be the #1 driver, though, of the winter snow is going to be the ENSO pattern. That's what's going on in the eastern Pacific Ocean. And actually some news was made with that this week. In case you missed it, a La Nina watch has now been issued, and that's from our friends over at NOAA, which is the governing body of weather here in the United States. So La Nina watch, I'm going to show you this here too, and then we'll go over the fall pattern, and of course in a few minutes we're going to get to your questions, but I want to show you this too, because this is really going to be impactful to the upcoming winter forecast, which, by the way, we're not that far away from. About 2 more months, we're going to get the official winter outlook from NOAA. And of course, already we're starting to put some of those pieces of the puzzle together. But check this out. So what you're seeing on your screen, all these different bars, starting with the blue here on many of these different little groups of months, that's the probability of seeing La Nina conditions. The dark gray bar here, this is the probability of seeing neither La Nina or El Nino. And then the tiny little red bar at the bottom that doesn't get bigger until you get over here, that's our probability of seeing El Nino conditions. So right now we're in neutral, and we've been in neutral for a while, but look at how the blue bar steps up, especially as we get into October, November, December, January, and even into early parts of February. That probability is increasing, and right now, it looks like a weak La Nina is going to be possible starting in October all the way through perhaps early next year. So that's going to play a big role in what happens with winter around here. If you're not familiar with what a La Nina pattern looks like in the winter here across the United States, this is exactly it. We get the jet stream that is very close to us, and that means 2 things. That means, 1, we're going to be more vulnerable to these cold spells, bringing in colder than normal temperatures. But 2, we're close enough to the storm track that we can utilize that cold air with all these storm systems coming through and riding the jet to bring in some really healthy snows at times. Meanwhile, the south half of the country is dry, right along the Gulf Coast and the desert Southwest, usually a drier pattern. It's also warmer there, of course, too. But yeah, 2 things to watch this winter: the colder temperatures and the higher amounts of snowfall, kind of trending in that direction. More data to back that up. And I showed you this months and months ago, but here's another reminder. When you look at the weak La Ninas, because this La Nina is expected to be weak, it's going to be short-lived. We're talking about 3 to 4 months right now, the way it looks. But if you look at past La Ninas here in the Quad Cities, the weak ones especially, more than half of those have featured colder than normal conditions. In fact, the average temperature was about 2.3 degrees colder. If you look at the snowfall, more than half of those had snowier than normal winters, and on average they had almost half a foot more worth of snow. Also, if you look at the other precipitation type, the rain, a lot of those weaker La Ninas drove in some wetter than normal conditions, more than half there too. On average, it was about 1.5 inches wetter than normal. So a lot of things coming into play there. Again, we're going to keep close tabs on that situation. As soon as La Nina develops, we'll let you know. But I am working on a piece for the digital side at our website, WQAD.com. Hope to have that wrapped up today. That kind of gives you this nice deep dive explanation as to what we could potentially expect for this upcoming winter. But certainly all signs are pointing to one that could potentially be colder than normal and potentially snowier than normal as well. One last thing before we get to your questions here. Also, in case you missed it, NOAA has released the fall outlook. So this is valid for September, October, and November. That's meteorological fall, and that's what we're showing you here on the map. Certainly, you're seeing a lot of warm colors, and you're really noticing some warm here in the southwest. This is the projection, and I do agree with this. I think most of the country is going to be warmer than normal. That's something that has really been consistent in a lot of the long-term model data. That does include us here in the Quad Cities. We are expecting warmer temperatures to take over. That doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to see these little cool dips now and then, like the one that we're experiencing now or the one coming in this weekend and the following weekend. But overall, we are expecting the average temperature for the fall season to be warmer than normal. A couple of impacts that we're going to be tracking with that. One is, of course, the fall colors. Those typically peak here in the Quad Cities right around October 25th to 28th. That could potentially be delayed by about a week. That's, I think, the biggest thing you're going to notice. So if you're planning those vacations, maybe you want to go to the north to look at some of the colors. Keep in mind, you're probably going to have to build that back a few more days versus what you would typically do in an average year, because we're dealing with not only the warmer temperatures, but think about how much rainfall we've gotten over the last several weeks. The colors tend to be a little bit earlier and a little bit more vibrant when we're dealing with some drier weather. And we're getting that right now, but you have to remember the ground is still full of water, so that's going to have an impact as well. But certainly there is a very high probability of seeing some warmer than normal temperatures in the next several weeks as we head into the fall season. And I can't believe we're talking about fall already, right now, getting ready to close out the month of August. Kids now back in school. It won't be long before we're all heading to the apple orchards and the pumpkin patches and doing all of that fun stuff. So fall is coming. Hopefully you're ready. And now at least you've got a little bit of a sneak peek at what to expect as the season comes in here. So now we've got plenty of time to get to some of your questions, and I'm going to load those up here on our stream. I want to thank you again for joining me this morning. It's so good to be back with you and back into the saddle here. Michelle is asking, do you think we are done with the heat and the humidity yet? I do think that we're done with the humidity. That part, the worst of it, I can confidently say is behind us. The heat, though, I do not think we're done with the heat quite yet. I'm going to show you why I think, confidently that we're going to be done with the humidity. We always talk about the corn sweat that exists across, especially our part of the country. And I'm going to bring up that graph here so you can see that we're now past the peak of corn sweat season. So here we are, we're now at the end of August and into September, and what a remarkable drop this is. Just look at this. A month ago, we were right here, kind of at the peak of corn sweat season, where we were on average getting about 0.3 to 3.5 of water thrown into the air every single day by all of that corn. That has now essentially been cut in half and then some, and we're not going to be seeing any more corn sweat for the remainder of the year. You've also probably noticed that a lot of your flowering plants are getting ready to kind of put in that last hurrah of blooming in color. They're not putting as much moisture and also water into the air as they were, say, a month ago, as our growing season is getting ready to start slowing down. So plants are getting ready to go into hibernation here in the next several weeks. That will limit the amount of water vapor we can have in the air. Hence, it will limit the amount of humidity we can have in the air as well. But I still expect we've got at least one, maybe two more 90-degree days that we're going to have to squeeze out quite yet. Good morning, Linnell from Elizabeth, Illinois. They're up in Joe Davis County. Good to have you with us here this morning. Riley has a joke of the day. I wondered, did you do these jokes while I was gone? Hopefully you kept Morgan and Peter some good company. Riley, let's see what your joke is here this morning. Why are meteorologists so calm during a storm? That's a good question. Okay, the answer is they've learned to stay centered in low pressure. I like that. That's really cute. Thank you so much, Riley. It's so good to be back. And nice to be talking weather again here with you. Asking about the coverage for tomorrow's chance of rain. Is there anything exciting from Monmouth and the Alexis area? I think just a quick hitting shower is all we're going to see out of that. The cold front that's coming in tomorrow, very starved for moisture. It's not going to have a lot of moisture to work with. And also, too, you look at the timing. Yeah, it's coming in right at about 4:30. So there's going to be this broken line of showers and thunderstorms, but that's about it. I think the majority of us are going to be dry tomorrow, outside of about maybe 40% of you. And I'm talking coverage here, about 40% of the area will likely see some of this activity, but the rest of us will likely remain dry as we head into tomorrow. Thanks for the joke. Those always brighten my day. We have Frank in Davenport asking, did you see the dust storms in Phoenix? Is that normal? Does it occur once every few years? The videos are crazy. That was a haboob. In fact, we showed that yesterday on Good Morning Quad Cities, and I also believe we had it on the 11 o'clock as well. Haboobs are quite frequent in that part of the country. In fact, Peter was kind of mentioning this the other evening when he was filling in for James, talking about the monsoon season, how that has started in the desert Southwest. That is very typical for this time of year, and I've also visited there too when these have been ongoing. Haboobs, of course, it's caused by all the dust and the desert sand just sitting around. It's easily picked up by the wind. And remember, like storms here, when the storms come in, you get that good rush of wind, that rain-cooled air. That's exactly what's happening in Arizona, except instead of picking up, debris and other things like that, it's picking up the sand, it's picking up the dust and the dirt and creating these giant dust storms. Very hazardous to travel. I believe the Sky Harbor Airport there in Phoenix had to be closed down for a brief period of time. They're very scary to drive in. You can go to YouTube and find a whole host of videos of people that have posted their dash cam video driving through these things. It goes from the lightest and brightest part of the day to just absolute pitch black darkness. And in most cases, it's that really eerie dark brown color. That looks really, really freaky. So yeah, it is totally normal. And with everyone having a phone and we got cameras all over the place, we're able to pick up and see and share those videos and pictures more and more easily compared to years past. Definitely some scary stuff to be in though. That's a great question. Linnell is asking, is the ragweed still on the high side? I had a problem last night with my asthma and was wondering if that was the reason why. I have some good news for you, Linnell. And in fact, we just got this good news a few hours ago. Let me scroll back to my graphic that I just updated. And by the way, the news was so good. Today's update on the ragweed is actually going to be the last one that we're going to have for you this season. So here's the number. As of this morning, it's in 70. It's at 70. So that's the moderate here. 41 to 100 is moderate. Anything lower than 40 is considered low and not much of a problem. So today, especially with the rain coming in, that's going to help clear things out, clear the air out. And we're not expecting any additional ragweed pollen to enter our air, as most of it has already been dispersed now in the last couple of days based on these higher numbers. And that's typical. You're going to get this ragweed number that will climb. It will, what we call kind of crescendo, max out, and then it will quickly drop off, and that's the end of the ragweed season. So today, tomorrow, once we get behind those 2 days, ragweed should pretty much be wrapped up for the season. And again, this is the last number, the last reading we're going to get from our allergist, Dr. Mark Blaser. I want to thank him, as always, every single year, coming in a pinch there to give us those numbers. And it's interesting how he counts these, by the way. If you didn't know, he literally puts one of those slides, those glass slides that you would see in chemistry or maybe a biology class when you were in school. He puts one of those outside, lets the pollen, the ragweed pollen, collect on it, brings it inside, puts it under a microscope, and he individually counts how many grains of pollen per a certain area there is, and that's how we get this number. So this is some great news on the ragweed pollen, and again, we're not expecting this number to go back up until we get to this time next year. Ragweed pollen is wrapping up. Thank goodness for that. I don't have ragweed allergies, but I'll tell you, I've been sneezing up a storm the last couple of days, and that's probably why. Our next question comes up from Cheryl, excuse me. What kind of winter do you expect in the Quad Cities region? I am in Kewaunee. Well, I still think, we have a little bit more evidence, a couple more pieces of the puzzle to go yet, but overall, I'm still expecting that colder and slightly snowier winter. versus what we've seen in a normal year. Now, that doesn't mean that, we're going to go gangbusters on snow, but certainly it does appear that we're going to be more in line to see those higher snowfall totals at the end of the season. So hopefully that's some good news for everybody that's got a snowmobile. Maybe if you're in the snow removal business, I know the last couple of years have really been challenging. Those have definitely been the folks that have not been very happy with us meteorologists, but hopefully this year we can make up for it because the trends right now are certainly heading right in that direction. Let's see, we got another one from Tracy. How come we haven't had very many good old thunderstorms in Monmouth? And that's true. The bulk of the rainfall, the bulk of the storm activity that we've had over the last several weeks has been further to the north. And that's because the further south you went, especially several weeks ago, the further into that heat dome you were, that ring of fire pattern. When you're closer to the heat, it's going to be harder to get those storms going. The storms like to go on the edge of those heat domes, right where the active storm track is and right where that energy can kind of associate itself more with the deeper moisture. I'll see if I can pull up the Ring of Fire explainer because it really shows well where this track typically lies and how these storms kind of move through. So what you look at is this here. And of course, what happened a few weeks ago is this pattern actually was shoved a little bit further to the north than what I'm showing here. But the heat really was able to build in very substantially for our southernmost hometowns, where we had multiple days with those heat index advisories and also the extreme heat watches and the extreme heat warnings. The further south you went, the harder it was to get storms to form because the temperatures were just simply too hot. So there is a consequence to being south of the Quad Cities, especially in that type of ring of fire pattern that we had weeks ago, and that it does become a little bit harder to get storms. I think your probability, though, of seeing some more active weather will be working a little bit more in your favor, though, the next couple of weeks. These cooler air masses tend to shove the storm track a little bit further to the south, so our southernmost hometowns will likely start getting in a little bit more on the storm and rain activity as we head into September. Riley is excited about the lower count on the ragweed. I totally agree with you there, and so is Linnell. Everyone is excited about that lower ragweed count. And yeah, that's some good news. Again, we're not going to get any further updates on the ragweed count after today because the season is going to quickly come to an end. So that's some really, really good news. And I always like ending Ask Andrew Live on a positive note with some good news. We have a couple of minutes left, so allow people to get one final question in here if you've got one. Otherwise, if you think of one later, you can still text it, by the way, to this line. But even better yet, if you go to WQAD.com, hit the weather tab, and then there's an Ask Andrew link. Submit it there on the form. It'll come right to my database, and then I'll pick that one likely for one that we will cover on the air coming up next week. So looking forward to that. Again, we'll give you guys just a couple of extra minutes there if you have one final question. I'm going to poke around at the radar really quickly. I'm actually going to pull up our local radar site here, which we've gotten rid of most of the ground clutter. I know that kind of gets in the way, but this is a better scan here showing you some of those showers that are coming in from the north and the west. Let's put a loop on that really quickly and just see, are these holding together or are they kind of fizzling out? Well, based on what I'm seeing right here, they're holding their own. You're talking about this area near Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, all that moving east. So it won't be too much longer till those will be getting in here. We can put our handy dandy little storm tracking tool on some of the returns here. Maquoketa, yeah, 10:45, crossing the river at about 11 o'clock. I think that looks pretty spot on. And this activity further west of that, this is what would move into the Quad Cities. And that looks to still be sometime right around noon. So very light showers, not expecting anything heavy. Again, just enough to mess up your nice clean car if you watch that over the weekend. If you want to watch it again, I think as you get into Friday and into the weekend, perfect time to do that. Good time to wax the car too with the cooler temperatures. That application should go a lot better for you. But yeah, a couple of showers moving in here as we go through the next several hours. Not going to be an all-day rain. There will be a couple of wet areas of pavement as we head into the afternoon. One more area of showers to track as we go into tomorrow afternoon. And then that is it. We get to enjoy a really, really nice Labor Day weekend. I mean, I'm speechless. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all 4 of those days, if you're taking an extended weekend, get outside. plenty of opportunity. Enjoy the barbecue, maybe do a little golf. Swimming, that might be a little cool to start on Friday, but you know what? If you do it on Labor Day, we're back into the 80s. Things are looking good right there. All right, we have reached the end of my time with you this morning. As always, I want to thank you for joining me. Again, we do this every Wednesday right here on the 8+ app. If you missed your question, head to WQAD.com. I will see you later this morning, actually coming up next in a bit on GMQC at 11. Have a great Wednesday, Quad Cities.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8+ app everywhere you stream.